What's up, people? This is Green Vanisher and Jujutsu Kaisen second season. Pretty late. I almost kind of watched it 1 year later. Just finished it yesterday, to be honest, the second season. And we're gonna talk about some of the things. Like, I liked the season. I mean, I would just lay it out there before we get into the specifics of the details of what happened and things like that. The season in its totality would be like a segue for the next season to come out. And I know that's a very cliche thing to say, but it's very evident in terms of like how things were laid out. So starting with the first couple of episodes where we actually get to explore through the backstories of Gojo and Geto and things like that, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Honestly, I think the first couple of episodes, the backstory arc that we got was actually beautiful, like precious, I would say. Getting to see Fushiguro's father was beautiful, like at the very least in terms of the character himself alone. Loved it. And yes, little bits of whatever we got to kind of see of him moving forward after the backstory ended was quite good. Like not exactly what you would expect or want to happen, but still a father-son moment reconciliation was kind of nice for me to see. I'm still okay with that. Now, so sticking to the backstories, yes, the first 5 episodes, loved it. The opening, we have to talk about the opening. There was like a misunderstanding that I had because I watched the season and I saw the second opening that starts around like exactly where the backstory arc ends, and we start with the 6th episode or something as such. The opening, the second opening in the season, which is Jujutsu Kaisen's like Bleach at this point of time. Like they might as well just like put 3 or 4 different openings in one season. They could have done it if they wanted to. Although I'm happy they didn't. The first arc, the backstory having a different opening, happy about that. Second arc that we get to see about the Shibuya incident, which is pretty much what we're going to talk about moving forward. That opening was actually really good. Like I have to kind of say that. Like in terms of what the opening does, the direction is beautiful. Like the little things that it entails, it pretty much covers everything in terms of the limited aspects of things that are going to happen this season to begin with. And I want to be clear about that. Not much happens. Like okay, a lot of things happen, sure enough, but I'm still gonna stick to my original argument that I still feel that the overarching season was just mainly setting up the premise for what's gonna happen next, and we'll get to that with the whole ceiling of our main character, sure enough. But yeah, the funny thing is that that opening is so beautiful. Like it covers pretty much the second one. I mean, it covers pretty much everything. Like in terms of the interaction between the good and the evil characters that you're gonna kind of get, along with that, like the idol transfiguration of Mahito at that point. Like they've shown you little bits of everything in terms of what's gonna happen. Even Kugisaki's face moment and all of those things. I'm sure like the people who have not watched the complete season as of yet may not get that. So I'm sorry if I'm getting into some spoiler zone, which I will heavily moving forward because it's not a non-spoiler free video. But the opening in the second is amazing. Contrary to that fact, the first opening, the backstory one, did win the Crunchyroll Awards for the best opening of the year, which I thought completely the opposite. I thought the second one would have won, and I had still arguments about that because I didn't think this was the best opening that we could have got. It's a little mini tiny opening which kind of like pretty much captures everything that's going to happen in the whole season, which is pretty limited in terms of how widespread the events of the plot is. Like this is limited to Shibuya and everything that happens there, and considering that, I was happy. I was still gonna forgive it, but no, I was wrong. The first opening, the backstory opening, is what won the award. And I'm sorry, like the song is good, yes. I don't think it deserves to be one of the best openings though. Like, okay. In the category of nominations that they at least had, they could have given it to anything else. I mean, no, not anything else, but like Chainsaw Man could have won. Their opening was better. And I mean opening as overall. I'm not specifying the bloody song or like just the visuals in this case. I have not seen the other romance show that everyone is talking about, the Yaosobi and all of that, so I will keep my mouth shut about that. But that was kind of weird for me while watching the season, at least. I didn't understand why would that be the case. But anyway, moving away from the opening conversation and coming back to the anime here. So the Shibuya incident, one thing I would put out there, that I understand that for the events to take place, they have to kind of limit the nature of how many characters can be introduced to save the day and like the chaos that we are facing. And because of the whale being introduced, it was something that we had already seen prior in the last season, and that was to keep Gojo outside the whale and things like that. This time it was kind of the opposite. So I'm just saying, not a complaint per se, but I don't want to see more of that. I don't want to see the same bloody thing being repeated in terms of at least the context where the fight is going to occur. The whale is being overused at this point of time, and at least they had like 4 whales up this time, and they had more of a strategic concept in terms of what they're going to do about it. So I'm still going to forgive them for the plot progression. Maybe it was required at this point, but no, I'm getting bored of that. So don't want that in the third season coming up at the very least. But now the way I'm going to choose to talk about this is by talking about the premise first, because that was very short, cut and clear, and actually the good part of the show that I really enjoyed. Within the whole premise of which we get to see episode by episode, the events kind of being dragged along, leading to the plot progression that finally reaches the end of the show, that I may have a little bit of qualms about, so we can maybe sit back and complain about that later. I'm going to get to that. Not much, actually, because overall the show was still good. I would still say that the season 1 was little or way better than season 2. We can fight about that later. But let's start with the premise itself. It being surrounded with the intent of capturing Gojo and sealing him, perpetuated mainly by Geto, who we also get to see the backstory and the build-up of in the first couple of episodes, which is beautiful because you actually get to see the motivational reasoning behind whatever the character does. The entire character development is laid out in the first couple of episodes, which is nice. All of which kind of strengthens the motivational reasoning behind whatever our main villain kind of does, and I found that beautiful. I was really happy to see that they're taking the narrative somewhere a little bit away from what the resurrection of Sukuna is going to be about, which we'll ultimately get to hopefully. But given that that ideology that they kind of take on, based on which they lay out the entire season first, also gets challenged by the end of the season 2 in the last episode, where we get to find out the real identity of Geto at this point. And that was the novelty factor for me, which I was really happy to see, because you're again kind of left not grounded at all in terms of what the fuck is going on. Now, the intent of capturing Gojo still remains to be the main premise, which they successfully end up doing by the end of the season, or let's say by the mid of the season. Okay, those are the specifics that we're going to talk about right now, but that's pretty much the premise, and that's the good part. Now, given that that is the premise, and the fact that they cannot give too much screen time to Gojo, which is something being saved for the next season or the last season or something as such, which is understandable, the entire concept of his powers and the infinite void and domain expansion. Fine, we'll take that into consideration, and then kind of talk about the fact that how Gojo gets captured and sealed by the middle of the season, not even middle of the season, by 10 episodes or 13 episodes in or something as such, which is okay, but now that just becomes a problem for the rest of the show to continue, because it's up to the other characters now to keep the show going on. And from that was the point that I was wondering, from the 13th episode onwards up until the next 10 episodes, the 23rd episode that we're going to get to, what are they going to exactly do? And that is where I kind of feel like the show was getting dragged in terms of the little bits of things that they have to fill in with the help of the rest of the characters that they have. So we'll start with each of them, I suppose. The only thing that was actually worth the entire season, in terms of like after Gojo being captured and the rest of the nonsense that we have to go through just to reach the last episode to find out what's going to happen next, was Itadori's reaction to Sukuna coming out and manifesting out into the open. I would go as far as to say that even Sukuna's manifestation out into the open was kind of fucking lame. Like, even the fight that pretty much leads to him coming out, in which Itadori pretty much loses himself and Sukuna is forced out into the open and take control of the picture. Not worth, at the very least. It was kind of very lame, I would say. And then followed by the next one episode in which he's pretty much traveling around and like destroying all the buildings and doing whatever he wants to do. The nature through, or the perspective through which he approaches the situation is kind of at least nice to see, because he has like a higher perspective on the things that he kind of wants to do, instead of just like succumbing to his followers and what their plans may be about the future. It's cool, but it doesn't make sense. His appearance does not make sense at all. Like, for the entirety of the next episode that we kind of get to see, it was lame. But the only thing that justifies all of that is finally Itadori's reaction when he wakes up and sees what has happened, and that moment when he cries and asks or prays for him to die, beautiful. That moment alone was kind of like pretty much what I wanted, and I'm happy with that. Although, as I said, the rest of everything pretty much forcing that situation to like take place was kind of not something that I'm into per se. Now, in contrast with which, the amount of screen time that we got for the other supporting characters is what I'm kind of disappointed about. I would have loved to see more of Fushiguro's on-screen things happening, but a little bit of the father-son confrontation that we got was still beautiful enough for me. The fact that Fushiguro did not realize anything is okay, but the fact that his father's body, not his father, was able to still at some level resonate with the fact that that's his son standing in front of him was kind of one of the beautiful moments that I really appreciated. I would have loved a little bit more of that, but we got like 10 minutes within one episode or something as such. So, okay, we'll take that and we'll shut up. The backstory of Kugisaki was beautiful. Like that little bit of 5 minutes that they kind of showed before her impending death almost, which is debatably something that we don't know maybe. I'm not sure if they revealed the fact that whether she died or not. I mean, she didn't, but still we don't know. But that was kind of nice. Again, too much little bit of screen time in terms of the supporting characters. Same goes for Nanami. I mean, really? Like, fucking really? They just killed him with that? Like, see, Nanami is a beautiful character that was pretty much the source of motivation for all the supporting characters that we have currently, or you can say the main characters per se. He was one of the motivational factors for all of the viewers to be hooked up with the show as well. But, I mean, the way that he died is not something I have a problem with, nor even the setting in which he died. Against Mahito, the way he died was fine enough, but we barely got to see any of him before that. I mean, I get the intensity of the situation in terms of how the catastrophe was everywhere and people were just trying to track down whoever they could, and as soon as they realized that Gojo is sealed, things went batshit crazy. Fine enough, but again, the same complaint. I don't think we got enough screen time for us to let a character go per se. So Nanami's death, again, sad. Now, okay, we'll talk about Mahito a little bit because I was kind of disappointed in terms of I liked Mahito. I do like him, like in terms of at least the season 1, he was one of my best main villain characters, and Mahito pretty much got most of the screen time. I would say he's the main villain, on-screen villain that we get to see in the season 2, which is cool, but that is partly the reason that it gets derailed downwards as well. The more we get to see of him, the lesser appreciation I have about his philosophies in terms of why he does whatever he does. I mean, I like a character who has no reason to do whatever the fuck he wants and is just purely evil, but that's not what I get to see. I get to see some sort of wimpy attitudes by the end, which was not something that I was looking forward to. But that's a little bit of personal qualm about how I want a character to be, not per se a complaint about the show exactly. Now, all of that being in one place, coming back to the development of our main character, who's Itadori. So what I spoke about his reaction to whatever Sukuna has already done in terms of the catastrophe that he wakes up to, Itadori in this case, that is followed by a really nice character development. I'll try to explain that to a certain extent. Now, after waking up to that fact that Sukuna has pretty much like destroyed half of Shibuya, I guess, and pretty much killed the humans very brutally and things like that, Itadori loses it, and that's like a feeling of not having any control, and him blaming himself was fucking nice. And then he walks up to the underground where he gets to confront Nanami, die in front of him, and then he loses it again. I mean, that happens, followed by Kugisaki's almost dying moments, which was beautiful, because that level of frustration on our main character kind of like takes him to a place where he just has no sense of control anymore, and he feels like he's losing it, and pretty much blames himself for the events that are taking place. And we actually get to see Itadori not just losing a sense of control, but like not having enough confidence to really walk onto the right path of the good side that he is on. And that is something that is better than what we get to see generally in a shonen character. Now, by any stretch of the imagination, Itadori is not a wimpy-ass character, just like Tanjiro, for example, or Gon, for that matter. But given that because Itadori is such a level-headed person, for him to actually go through that level of frustration and blame himself for the entirety of what's going on, that was character development enough, and he was actually lost until brother comes. Now, this whole sense of powerlessness that Itadori kind of goes through, in turn developing his character to reach a point where he can stand and say to Mahito that he would willingly kill him regardless of whatever the situation may present itself as, was good enough. Like, that was beautiful, I would say. That being pretty much the conclusion of the show, and in the last couple of episodes the fight being settled, followed by whatever we get to see, little bits of Geto's true identity in the follow-up, setting it up for the next season to come out now. I would say the entire season was pretty much an escalation. Like, they tried to escalate as many things as possible, because the last episode, whatever it entails about the actual situation of the so-called sorcerers, and a couple of more things that I don't really want to spoil, the resultant decisions that will be made towards the so-called loved main characters that we have here. That part was pretty much, yes. The entire show was basically escalating the situation as much as possible for us to now reach the next season and see what happens there. I am happy with that. Not bad. A couple of more things that I really did love about the show. I'm gonna keep the soundtracks aside because yes, those are good. There's no complaints about that. The animation, really proud of Mappa for like really doing whatever they're doing. Like, half of the reason I think Jujutsu Kaisen is so amazing because of the bloody animation. And specifically what I really like is these little bits of scenes that they get into when they show you a backstory and then the animation changes. You go back to like the 2004 or 6 of like Madhouse or Mappa animation. It's cute. It's really cute. Like, that I really did like. Now you also have to kind of expect that to be the case given the amount of revenue they must have generated based on the fame that season 1 went through. So good for Mappa, good to go, no complaints there. But yes, it's batshit crazy the amount of popularity that Jujutsu Kaisen has got. So it's a good show, nothing more than that I would say. But yeah, I would say I like the entire season. Yes, in terms of whatever it was trying to achieve, it did. The second opening was beautifully directed. It captured pretty much everything that was going to happen in the season throughout. The season was thoroughly based around escalating as many things as possible, which they kind of did accomplish. Yes, the show did get dragged on after the capture of Gojo for the next 10 episodes, but they tried to fill it in with as much filler episodes as they could. So fine, we'll forgive that in some sense, no complaints there per se. The last couple of episodes, the thing that they have escalated, I'm hoping will actually help us out to further move into like a new setting altogether. Now in the third season, the world is going to be different, so hopefully no more of Wales and some nonsense. I would really take a domain if that's what they want to give us. That's still okay. I don't want to see more of this whale nonsense at the very least. So the amount of things that they do per episode is, I think, partly why Jujutsu Kaisen has been so famous in today's age, at least, because they really know very well to work with this whole episodic release of one episode per week in some sense. So they do leave you with enough things happening in each episode for you to look forward to the next. So that is a good thing about Jujutsu Kaisen, I would say. Like, even for a person like me who would hate to sit and watch anything on an episodically basis, 20 minutes no can do in anime. Like, I've tried, I still do of course, but I would still stick to marathoning the shows like I just did yesterday and watch the entire season at once. I would still kind of agree to the fact, and I can see how it is so popular in today's fan base at least, and with all these people who would follow the season episodically on a weekly basis. So cool enough for that. I mean, there is a whole argument that of course the entire show being released at once is also having some flaws to it in terms of its popularity that it gains in the anime community, but that's all your nonsense, I guess, for you to take care of. Anyway, so that's pretty much it, I suppose, the second season. I don't think I complained enough, and I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting a lot of things that I wanted probably to talk about, which I did not get the chance to hear. So you can kind of criticize me, letting me know what I missed out on, I guess, in the comments below. But yes, that would be pretty much it for me today. Let's see. So since I have watched it this year, I'm hoping that I will get to see pretty much the next season, hopefully soon, if this year, hopefully. But anyway, that's pretty much it, I guess. Take care, people. Let me know what I missed out on, what you would like to agree or disagree with. I'm not gonna actually go on with this nonsense more. That's the end of the video. Bye bye. Haha. Yeah.